Who would have thought in 2026 the Neo Geo AES Plus would have been some of the most positive gaming news as it refers to physical media of the year? Let's get into it. What it is, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ness, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. This is your source for all things Neo Geo and video games. Well, this week, month, year, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot going on in the news, and I figured that I would take the time out to kind of discuss my thoughts on it. And I'm pretty sure by now you've seen numerous videos, whether it's negative, positive, or anything and everything in between, over and regarding the end, or I won't say the end, but definitely a high reduction as it sits in the media in the video game industry. PlayStation, if by now you haven't seen at the time of this video, has announced that they will be removing physical video games from their library moving forward, starting in the year of 2028. A couple hours later, Microsoft followed suit in sorts. And what this is showcasing is a multitude of things. Let's start with the hard truth. Imagine logging into one of your modern video game consoles tomorrow and realizing that the movies that you've purchased over the years are gone. And the games that you've come to know and love are no longer available on a disc. They are digital. And on top of that, those games, yet few and far between, may have been pulled off of a server. Maybe perhaps a studio shut down and no longer can maintain a server, and that is the end of the life of that video game. The recent news from Sony and Microsoft has been quite significant over the last couple of days or last few weeks. We went from Summer Game Fest, where we saw a multitude of new, fresh ideas and games that pumped new life back into the industry, mainly for the gamers, the consumers, the ones who are playing these games week in and week out. And from those conversations with individuals from Sony PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox, even Nintendo, we saw a large ray and light of hope for what the future of video games looks like. And fast forward a week or so later, we were hit with massive news reports of job layoffs at multiple studios. Bungie, which many of you by now have probably heard, laid off roughly 400 plus individuals, literally stripping the Destiny 2 team down to bare bones. Just enough individuals to handle the keep the lights on server type situations, and followed suit with individuals that were leading and managing the marathon front. There was a huge outcry and pour in the community for Destiny 2 to remain or Destiny franchise to remain, and the lack of players basically boycotting in some form or fashion Marathon. When we move forward from there, we eventually saw that Sony wasn't done. They announced that they were going to remove 500 plus different movies from their store, and for those PlayStation loyalists that purchased a lot of their large video and Hollywood media on the Sony platform, they were notified through this news of recent that they would no longer own that media. Those movies are gone. And then, as to add insult to injury to the most recent news as it sits today, at the time of this video, they announced that video games from a physical standpoint will no longer be created from the Sony PlayStation brand in the year of 2028. Now, this is news fresh and off the presses, so time will tell whether or not they decide to backtrack. We know Microsoft has done this before. Only a few hours later, the time of this video, Microsoft followed suit, also saying the same thing, with the next generation of consoles, Helix and the PlayStation 6, pretty much in layman's terms going to just digital-only consoles. I say all this to lay the groundwork. Why is this important, Ness? Okay, digital has been a thing for a while now, and the new generation doesn't care about physical. Well, I'm here to tell you from my opinion and my perspective, and there's a lot of hot takes on this topic out there, but I'm going to give it from my lens. Digital is incredibly convenient. There is no denying that. Manufacturing costs are high, and cost of materials, chips, boards, accessories have increased exponentially over the last 2 years. It's all thanks to AI in a lot of form or fashions, amongst other things as well, but we won't get into those key topics today. My biggest opinion on this is that convenience shouldn't come at the cost of ownership. Many folks out there, and including myself, as you can see the library of video games behind me, all mainly Neo Geo and some graded games, but I do off-screen have some additional games from PlayStation 1, 2, 4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Original, Sega Saturn, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and the list goes on from a physical media standpoint. But our biggest beacon of hope comes from a developer and publisher that came completely out of left field and blindsided the entire video game industry, and that's with PlayOn and SNK. A console that's over 30 years old and at the time was probably the most unheard of, unspeakable price known to man for a console and its video games. Having a video game console at the cost of $650, games ranging anywhere in the upper 200s per game. Now we've reached a level in time where our consoles are now in reaching the $1,000 mark. Valve's Steam machine launching with roughly $1,100 and then $1,400 if you want a controller. We're now at that critical tipping point in the video game industry where you're dealing with massive layoffs, studios shutting down, games launching that aren't complete and bugged out, leaving fans and consumers frustrated and tired of the same old nonsense. Corporate entities that don't understand video games at the core and managing it like your typical core corporate business and not from a gamer's lens. They think that they can manage by the simple dollars and cents of Wall Street, and yet they refuse to listen to their consumer, knowing the best route to go for this industry is in the hands of the very people that are playing their games. However, they want to take the safe route. They would rather do the cookie cutter reskin of the most popular game and then apply their version of it to see if it can bring in marketing dollars, or having something that's more live playing games that can continue to bring revenue year over year. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The digital market is winning against physical. About 80 to 85% of the video game industry, that money is made through digital and software. The other percentage of that is through hardware, which is drastically losing day in and day out. As new generations come into the genre, they're more of a convenience generation, not necessarily needing the physical media or the demand of holding multiple items and taking up space in their small areas or in their game rooms. They would rather utilize that space for other things. Perfectly understandable. But for the folks that started this at the base level foundations and cores of video games, this is one of the few things that we run into. The top 5 highest grossing games for the most part are either live service games or mobile games in the upper billions over the years that they've been out. Games like PUBG and Minecraft have brought in billions of dollars over the years, and many games have followed suit to find a way to replicate that same type of format. More recent games like Grand Theft Auto 6, which of course we know by now has been the hugest topic of the year out of all video games. People have been foaming at the mouth for this game for quite some time. Grand Theft Auto 5 brought in about $8.5 billion, and that's still ticking up. Contrary to news reports, it seems like they've made a large portion of that money back in pre-orders for Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, time will tell to see what the true numbers are, so the time of this video, that's all speculative information. But I say all this because I'm trying to lay the base foundations behind why we're in the situation that we're in right now. From a global platform perspective, I'll split this into 3 categories. Category 1 is mobile. which takes up about 52 to 55% of the market share, which is roughly about $100+ billion. It's quite a lot of money. And these are roughly estimated numbers for 2026. We then shift over into the console side of the house. Market share wise, the console side of the house roughly takes up about 24 to 28% of market share, leading us roughly to, at the high side of that, $52 billion in revenue. And on the back end of that, the third would be the PC market. The PC market also brings in another 21 to 23% market share and is roughly very close in terms of revenue growth, about 51 to 52-ish billion dollars. So, as you can see, mobile games take up a large portion of it, but you have to think of it from this perspective. A lot of the games that we play on console and PC have been ported in some form or fashion on mobile. Its ease of use is helpful for many different genres and groups and demographics to play their games on the go, or for those that love playing the Candy Crush games or the Angry Birds, etc. There's tons of different games out there that people find that are easy to pick up, not too hard to learn the mechanics, and they can just go about their day after they've gotten their fill for a couple of minutes or so. This is where we go into the Sony PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox, and then we'll go ahead and throw the Neo Geo in there in the back end. Software sales are destroying physical media. And yes, while it sucks for those that want to hold the tangible item and own that, it's just the way of the world. We're about 83% in overall market share from a software standpoint, and the remaining piece of that is on the hardware side. And for those of you that don't know, every single time that a new console comes out, generally that company is taking an L. They're taking a loss. The cost of the console, they have very thin margins when they release, and the major money that's made is on the games, the software. They drive more people to the ecosystem and lock them into that ecosystem to continue purchasing more hardware accessories and software, DLCs, battle passes, season passes, etc. on their platform. And generally, in the later portions of the life cycle of those consoles, we generally see a drop in price. The cost of materials lowers as technology continues to progress, and it costs less money to produce those consoles. And of course, people are able to snag great deals on those consoles and pick up games that they've probably been waiting a couple of years before they pull the trigger. However, we are in a very odd time. The cost of those materials has not dropped. It has exponentially increased significantly now. Why? Because the same manufacturers of these chips, processors, CPUs, GPUs, etc., all of the materials that we use in our current consoles have now been adopted by AI. A lot of data centers have been popping up over the last couple of years, and now we're in this huge AI boom, to a point to where all the chip manufacturers that still produce some form or fashion these pieces for our consoles and hardware, they've shifted their business focus all the way to the AI data center because they can lock in more profits, margin, etc., leaving the video game companies with one major issue: the cost to build. They can't lower the price. They've actually increased the price. When a PS5 Pro is now $900+, an Xbox Series X increasing yet again to $750. That's $250 more than when it first launched. So for those of us that normally wait a couple of years or wait to the back end of the life cycle to move into the console, in actual reality, it would have been better for you to purchase it when it first dropped. We had no way of knowing that. This is the first time in the history of video games that we're experiencing this type of consumer market when it comes to these devices and accessories. And then that brings us to the Neo Geo AES Plus. Why? Why is this the only highlight? Well, I'll tell you why. And here's my focus behind it, because I am a Neo Geo channel, of course. We've hit a critical moment where there was tons of people out there, hundreds of thousands of individuals who wanted a Neo Geo growing up. They heard of it. It was always the lost unicorn in the forest that you may have gotten a glimpse of, or you may have heard the tales and fables of before in those stories, but you never got your chance to place your hands on it, to touch it, to see it, to capture its glory. And now you have the ability to purchase that at a very affordable price of $250. Now, mind you, there's many people out there that would say, like, this console's 30 plus years old. Why would I pay $250? The games are 30 plus years old. There's nothing new about it. Why would I pay $90 for that? That's expensive in this economy. Very much so. But if you compare that to what I show behind me right here, you're saving yourself a significant amount of money versus the latter. Now, I'm not here to deter anyone from, your emulations and all of that, because to be honest, the way this industry is going, I'm pretty sure many of you out there are probably going to start leaning even heavier into the emulation portion of the hobby, if you call it that. But for our physical media folks, when you're taking away movies, you take away music, you take away games from an ownership standpoint, what are you left with? You're left with a subscription. Perfect example, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, the list goes on. How many times have you had a show on there that you like to come back to every other year? Perhaps you've binged watched it because it's just one of your favorite shows and you love to get a refresher every other year, and come to find out that they've lost the licensing to that and it's no longer on that platform. But another platform picks it up and you don't own a subscription to that. And yet you find yourself buying a subscription for yet another place that may have one show, two shows at max, and you're spending more and more money year over year on subscriptions across numerous streaming services, which leaves you with such a headache. Why are we paying so much money for so many different sources of content? Because they're paywalled or locked behind a certain publisher entity owning the licensing behind that. This is the differentiation behind the physical media piece. When you buy a tangible item, you own that tangible item. Should you want to sell that or trade it, you can. And that brings me to the last point, is we are in a time where now we have to really justify, what are we purchasing? Do we pay with our dollars? Do we demand a change? There's a lot of frustration out there right now, but let's be honest. How many of you out there that are really frustrated about it going to do something about it? I've already told many of you online that I'm not buying this and I'm not buying that, and I'm sticking to it. Am I gonna buy Grand Theft Auto 6? Yeah, I will. Is it gonna be this year? No, it's not. I'll wait. If they're not gonna give a physical disc, okay, it is what it is. I'll just buy it on PC. If PC's 2 years from now, it's 2 years from now that I play the game. Is there a little bit of FOMO behind that, or missing out, or fear of missing out? There is, but let's be honest. I'll play the game when I'm ready to play the game. Now, for many of you out there, you may not be as deep and entrenched in video games as myself, so you may not need, you may only have one or two top 3 games that you only ever play. So Grand Theft Auto makes perfect sense to you. For me, I love to jump into the nostalgia of owning the hardware, of owning the games. Regardless if the game or the company no longer exists, there's a history behind that. There's a preservation behind that. And we are slowly losing that. Many of you may disagree with my thoughts today, and that's perfectly fine. This is an open forum. But I do say this. We have to stop and really think about, do we really want this to happen? Because if you see 500 plus movies leaving a platform, even if you've purchased, you don't get those dollars back. Regardless if you didn't watch all 550 of those movies in the last year and a half, you still own them, or the perspective was you did, but you don't now. How do you change that? Buy more physical? You could. Physical still matters. Ghost of Tsushima, PlayStation 5. The game is on the disc. Rival Schools, PlayStation 1. The game is on 2 discs. Mario Golf, the game is on the cartridge. Shadow Labyrinth, the game is on the cartridge. Neo Geo AES, the games are on the cartridge. I don't have to worry about an organization coming in and deleting my library tomorrow with what I have, tangible items that I have control over. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about a studio shutting down. Maybe they've already done so. I mean, let's be honest. SNK went through a bankruptcy many years ago. The console itself lasted a lot longer than anyone really assumed was going to last. And the games continued even after the console wasn't being produced anymore. And the biggest crazy curveball of 2026 being that the very organization that went through the trials and tribulations of the late 90s and early 2000s is coming back with not only a console, not emulated, but a one-of-one that plays all of the original media and the second prints of it. What does that tell you? What have the gamers shown from this? Pre-orders are crazy through the roof. So many units sold to a point to where the very CEO made an announcement on LinkedIn first to say, we had no idea that this was going to be a thing. The people are paying with their dollars. They value physical media. Yes, we understand. The way of the world is going to be digital. We understand that. But reducing and removing the options for those that wish to have physical media is a mistake. So enticing when you walked into a video game store when you were a kid. You would see the front cover and say, that looks like a cool game. We didn't have trailers dropping on a YouTube channel. We didn't have YouTube back then. We had magazines. The pages popped and shot out at us. There could be a 15-page spread over Street Fighter, and you would be enamored by those images for days, begging mom and dad to have a copy of that game for Christmas. Midnight releases, the anticipation and awe of seeing hundreds of people in line, not rushing, not stomping on each other, but sharing their love and passion for a game, a series. Talking about how they couldn't wait to get home. They're staying up late tonight to play the game for the first hour or two after a midnight release, that they've taken off days after the fact to play. You do not get this with digital. You don't get these memories. You don't get these worldly human-to-human connections. Being able to go to a store and talk to fellow enthusiasts about the passion. We're losing that. This is a domino effect of things. It's going to become a pastime. It's going to become a myth, a legend, if we're not careful. Maybe I'm overreacting. But the fact of the matter is that I support physical. Digital has its place, but I am a strong proponent that any corporation that services their consumer, they should have a mandate to make sure their consumers are taken care of. Now, I understand you can't make everyone happy, but you shouldn't sacrifice the ones that set the foundations of the very industry that you're thriving on. At least some of them are. Physical media, you can't take it with you. Perfectly understandable. But while we're here, we have to enjoy it. Drop comments down below. What are your thoughts? Are you pro-digital? Are you pro-physical? Are you done? Are you moving away from the new generation of consoles to come within the next year or so? Are you excited for the new AES Plus? Maybe you're just saying, you know what, I'm done with modern. I'll play what I have. I'll use my PC for whatever I need. And then from a physical standpoint, I'll keep collecting what I can when I can. Let me know. Collect and play, and I do mean collect, the way you want to collect and play your games. And we'll check you next time. Peace.